Right now, while you're watching this, your body is doing something it never told you about. Millions of your cells are dying. Millions more are being born to replace them. Your stomach lining, completely replaced every 5 days. Your skin, gone and rebuilt every few weeks. The skeleton you think of as your permanent structure. The bones that feel so solid and fixed. The atoms in them are replaced every few years. The skeleton inside you right now is not the same skeleton you had 10 years ago. Not metaphorically, literally. Different atoms, same shape. This isn't philosophy yet. This is just biology running quietly in the background without asking your permission. And when I started really thinking about this, not just knowing it, but actually following the idea all the way down, it broke something open. Because if your atoms are constantly leaving and being replaced, if the physical substance of you is in a state of permanent turnover, then what exactly is the you that's persisting through all of it? What are you actually? I never liked the way people talk about identity. It's always so abstract. The self, the soul, the continuous thread of consciousness, beautiful words that explain nothing. I want to know what's physically happening. I want to follow the atoms. Here's how I think about it. Don't think of yourself as a thing. Think of yourself as a process. There's a difference, a big one. A rock is a thing. It sits there. Its atoms stay put. You can come back to it in 1,000 years and it's basically the same rock. But a flame is a process. The molecules burning in a candle flame right now are not the same molecules that were burning a second ago. The flame is consuming fuel, releasing heat and light, constantly taking in new material and transforming it. And yet we look at a candle and say the flame is still burning. We don't say that's a different flame now. The pattern persists, even though the substance is always changing. You are more like a flame than a rock. You always were. So what's staying the same? If it's not the atoms, and it isn't, what is it? People jump straight to memories. That's what makes you you, they say. The continuity of memory, the thread of experience running from childhood to now. And I understand why that feels right. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. Memory is not a recording. When you remember something, anything, a birthday party, your first day at school, something that happened last week, you are not pressing play on a stored file. You're reconstructing it every time. Your brain pulls fragments from different storage locations, stitches them together, fills in the gaps with what seems plausible, and produces a coherent narrative. And every time you do that reconstruction, the memory gets slightly altered. You're not reading from a fixed document. You're rewriting it every single time you access it. The you who remembers your childhood is not the same you who lived it. And the memory itself is not what actually happened. It's a reconstruction of a reconstruction of a reconstruction, each pass introducing small distortions, filling gaps differently, coloring things with the emotional state you were in the last time you remembered them. I was always deeply suspicious of certainty. This is exactly why. The thing you're most sure of, your own personal history, the story of your life, is the thing your brain is most actively rewriting. So the atoms change. The memories shift. What about personality? What about the you that feels consistent? Your sense of humor, your fears, your values. Those change too, measurably. Psychologists have tracked personality across decades and found that the changes are substantial. The things that terrified you at 20 don't terrify you at 40. The things you cared most about at 30, you might find embarrassing at 50. People change so much over a lifetime that meeting your 20-year-old self would feel like meeting a stranger who happens to share your name. So what's left? What's actually staying constant? The pattern, the organization, the particular way information flows through the system. That is you. Not the atoms, not the exact memories, not the fixed personality, but the structure, the shape of how you process the world. And that structure is encoded ultimately in your DNA, in the neural connections your brain has built up over a lifetime of experience, in habits and reflexes and ways of seeing that run so deep you don't notice them anymore. But here's the thing about patterns. They can change too, slowly or suddenly. A brain injury changes personality. A traumatic experience rewires fear responses. Years of deliberate practice reshape neural architecture. The pattern is more stable than the atoms, but it's not fixed. Nothing in you is fixed. Now, People usually bring up the Ship of Theseus here, the old Greek puzzle. You have a ship. Over time, you replace every plank, every rope, every nail until nothing original remains. Is it still the same ship? People treat this like a profound paradox. I think it's the wrong question, and I'll tell you why. The Ship of Theseus is replaced from the outside. Someone comes along, removes a plank, puts in a new one. The ship itself is passive in this process. It's just sitting there, having things done to it. You are nothing like that. Your body is replacing itself from the inside, using instructions encoded in your own DNA in a continuous, active, self-directed process that has been running since before you were born. The replacement isn't something happening to you. The replacement is you. It's not that you're a ship having your planks swapped out. You're a process that builds its own planks, replaces them on schedule, and maintains the overall structure through the exchange. There's no original ship to go back to because there never was a static original. You started changing the moment you started existing. And now let's go deeper, because biology is one level of this, physics is another. At the quantum level, at the level of the fundamental particles that make up your atoms, the situation is even stranger. Particles don't have continuous identity the way everyday objects seem to. An electron is not a tiny ball persisting through time. It's an excitation in a quantum field, more like a wave in water than a marble rolling across a table. And every electron in the universe is identical, not similar, identical. There is no property you could measure that would distinguish the electron in your hand from any other electron anywhere. They're not individuals, they're ripples in the same field. My path integral formulation, the way I learned to think about quantum mechanics, says something even more radical about continuity. A particle moving from point A to point B doesn't take one path. It takes all paths simultaneously. Reality at the quantum level is not a single thread running from past to future. It's the sum of every possible thread, weighted by probability. The clean, continuous, single-track story we tell about objects moving through time. It's an approximation, a very good approximation at human scales, but an approximation nonetheless. If even particles don't have clean, continuous, individual identity, if the most fundamental constituents of matter are not persistent things, but momentary events in fields, then the idea of a fixed, continuous self starts to look like something we invented for convenience, not something we discovered in nature. And now the question that makes people either very anxious or very free, depending on how they're wired. If you're not the same person you were 10 years ago, different atoms, reconstructed memories, shifted personality, changed values, then who is responsible for what that past version of you did? Who gets the credit for what they built? Who carries the consequences of what they chose? I wouldn't answer this philosophically, I'd answer it practically. The pattern carries the consequences forward, even when the atoms don't. You inherit your past self's choices the way a country inherits its history. You didn't make all of it. Some of it was made by a version of you that no longer exists in any physical sense, but you're living inside the consequences of those choices, the relationships that past you built or damaged, the skills that past you developed or neglected, the reputation that past you earned or lost. The pattern inherited the results, even as the substance changed. That's not a comfortable answer, but I never thought comfort was the point. Here's what I actually found exciting about all of this. And I want to be clear that I found it genuinely exciting, not in a performed way, but in the way you feel when a piece of physics snaps into place and suddenly a dozen things you didn't understand become obvious. Nature doesn't need a fixed self to produce consistent behavior. That's the miracle. The rules operating on constantly changing matter still produce recognizable patterns. Your friends recognize you. Your habits persist. Your particular way of laughing at something. Your specific angle on a problem. Your characteristic response to being wrong. These stay consistent even as the atoms swap out, the memories reconstruct, the personality slowly drifts. The stability isn't in the substance. It's in the rules governing how the substance organizes itself. This is what physics always does. It finds the thing that's actually conserved, the thing that the equations say must stay the same. And it turns out that thing is almost never the thing that seemed permanent at first glance. Energy is conserved, not the particular form it takes. Momentum is conserved, not the specific objects carrying it. Information, some physicists argue, is conserved. It can't be created or destroyed, only transformed and redistributed, not that you persist, that the pattern is stable enough to feel like persistence, even when nothing underneath is fixed. That's the real answer. And I think it's a better answer than a fixed soul, because it's true. Let me leave you with two questions. Just sit with both of them. If you woke up tomorrow with no memories but every single one of your current atoms, same matter, no continuity of experience, would that be you? And if you woke up tomorrow with all your memories, your complete personal history intact, but every atom in your body had been replaced with a different one, which, by the way, is roughly what happened to you over the last decade, would that be you? You already know which one feels right. The memories, the information, the pattern, not the hardware. That's Feynman's point, stripped to its core. What you are is the information, not the matter carrying it. And information, unlike atoms, unlike cells, unlike the particular arrangement of particles that makes up your body right now, information can be passed on. It can persist in other people who knew you, in things you made, in ideas you had that changed how someone else thought. The atoms scatter, the pattern echoes. You are not the same person you were yesterday. You never were. And somehow, that's not a loss. That's just what being alive actually is.